Alright guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about patch progression in TBC Classic, what it's all about and how it should be done. So as far as I can see, there's 5 big topics, 5 big issues and concerns when it comes to patch progression. First of all, itemization, class changes, raid nerfs, attunement nerfs for raids and dungeon keys, and then lastly actual content like guild banks and the revamping of the old zones. By the way guys, just quickly, I am actually doing the hardcore challenge at the moment on a fire mage, so if you want to check that out, please follow my Twitch in the description below. But anyway, let's jump in. So, itemization. Now this was a big concern before Classic WoW came out because people didn't want to obtain powerful gear on the launch of Classic and take that into Molten Core and Blackwing Lair and obviously make the content much easier. Fortunately, Blizzard didn't really listen to that issue, and we got, particular items which were ridiculously strong that you could obtain before you even stepped foot in a raid, which made Molten Core, Blackwing Lair and other raids much easier. So how does this relate to TBC Classic? Now, the pre-raid gear wasn't changed incredibly. What mainly has changed in a later patch, particularly the 2.1 itemization, is the Karazhan gear. So as you can see here, we have a typical spell power weapon for any spellcaster that is one of the best in slot pieces that you can get from Karazhan. Get it from the last boss. And the spell power increase is 203 and the spell crit is 23. Now if you look at it in an earlier state, the spell crit is 21 and the spell damage is 178, so that's only like a little bit of a step up from Stormcaller and Blade of the Archmage, which are like 156. So obviously with buffed gear available at the launch of TBC Classic, it's going to make the raids that come after Karazhan a little bit easier. So Gruul's Lair and Magfaradon's and then SSC and Battle for Mount Hyjal will be that slightly little bit nerfed naturally by everyone's buffed gear. And I honestly think that this will be a little bit of an issue because tier 5 raids will naturally be nerfed by this buffed gear that was changed in 2.1. There were also some slight changes to item enchants and gems. So as you can see here, the runic spell thread, it gives 35 spell power, but originally it actually only used to give 27. I know that's quite minor, but obviously when you bear in mind all of your enchants and all of your gems, that can be quite significant. So hopefully Blizzard will decide to release the itemization as it was in the original 2.0, where this weapon for instance has 178 spell power and not over 200, because that is how the private server community actually do it. People who host private servers, they do this intentionally to keep the content challenging so the content isn't just steamrolled and it isn't too easy. Now the next big issue is obviously class changes. So obviously during Classic WoW's lifetime, the talents and the spells, they all change very significantly. Overall, throughout the lifetime of the game, they were massively buffed. So when Classic WoW launched with 1.12 talents, again we were much more powerful than we were in the original launch of Vanilla. Now that's a little bit of an issue, like for previous reasons that we've already talked about. It trivializes the raid content, makes it too easy, and ironically makes it less authentic to what it was originally in Classic WoW. So obviously this issue could pop up also in TBC Classic. So obviously that begs the question, should we have 2.0 pre-patch TBC talents rather than 2.4.3 talents? Personally, I think there's disadvantages and advantages to both. First of all, if we just had 2.4.3 talents, it would just make it much easier for everyone to understand, and they won't have to read patch notes every single time a new patch comes out, and they could just buff the raids slightly to make up for the fact that our classes are a little bit more powerful than they were in original TBC. But honestly, I probably would prefer a progressive class change system, although it's probably quite a crazy idea that a lot of people probably do not have the time for. Again, it's just my opinion. I personally think, first of all, it will keep the content challenging and it will change the meta progressively throughout the expansion, so the best classes in Arena and in Raiding won't just be the same from, the beginning of TBC to the end. Things will change up a little bit, and it will obviously keep the content just a little bit more exciting and fresh with every single content release. Moving on, we now need to talk about raid nerfs. So in patch 2.4.3, or basically whenever a new content patch came out, the previous content would be nerfed. But most of the nerfs were implemented in 2.4.3 in the Sunwell patch, where every single boss previous to Sunwell gets a little bit nerfed. Obviously the reason why they implemented that is to make the raids a little bit easier so people can catch up with farming the raids and getting their gear. And I don't have an issue with that, but obviously if 2.4, if TBC Classic releases with those 2.4.3 nerfs, then the content that we are clearing for the first time will be significantly more nerfed and less challenging than it was in the original TBC. And if we're factoring things like, the new itemization, the new class changes, the new talent changes on top of these nerfs to the raid that were implemented, then yeah, the raids are going to be significantly too easy in my opinion. So personally, I definitely don't think the raids should be nerfed until the next content patch comes out, and they should just do it how they actually did it in the original TBC. But now that I think about it, I don't think any nerfs have to be implemented to any of the raids anyway. Next we have attunement nerfs. So all the attunements were totally removed in patch 2.4.3, so if Blizzard decides to launch with that patch, then there wouldn't actually be any achievements in place. So that would be quite detrimental to the whole philosophy and charm of TBC, let's be honest. So I definitely don't think they will do that, but it is obviously important to mention. Now, as TBC did progress on, eventually the requirement for unlocking heroic dungeons was nerfed from getting revered reputation to honoured reputation. Now a lot of private servers, they just implemented that at the correct patch time like it was in the original TBC, and I definitely think that's also a good thing, because again, when you're leveling your alts or people are returning to the game or trying it for the first time, they won't fall too far behind because they won't have to farm immense amounts of rep, because obviously when you're actually trying to find a group to grind that rep, there'll be less groups going because people won't need that rep anymore. So the requirement is nerfed to honoured, which you can probably just get with quests and a couple dungeon runs, and then you get your, half decent gear from your heroics. So I definitely think the attunement nerfs should be implemented when they were originally implemented in TBC Classic, but in all honesty, I don't think the raid achievement should be nerfed at all, apart from maybe the SSC one, because that is a little bit of a pain in the backside because you have to kill Nightbane. Overall, I just think it should happen exactly how it was in the original TBC. Now the last thing we need to talk about is content, so actual game features like guild banks and the little revamp to the old zones, level 20 to 60. So I think things like this should be definitely implemented on the launch of TBC, because people are going to moan a lot about having to wait a year for guild banks to actually be implemented into the game. So I think it's definitely a good idea to get stuff like that in straight away. And when we're talking about the revamp to all the old zones, people who are re-rolling to a Draenei or Blood Elf have an easier time, because what they essentially did is reduce the amount of XP required to get to level 60, and we also added a few cheeky quests here and there, so the leveling experience for people playing Blood Elves and Draenei will be much smoother. But anyway, I think we've definitely covered the topic as extensively as I can. If you guys really enjoyed the video and want to see more videos coming soon, I do aim to upload about 4 TBC videos a week, then please consider hitting the subscribe button, because that really does help me out and everything like that. Like the video, tell me what you think about this topic in the comment section below. My name is MetaGoblin. Until the next video, ciao.